Hey, Disturbinites, it's Jim.
And Jen.
And we're coming to you from the Disturbin the Burbs studios. We just wrapped up a great interview with Justin Hillgrove, who's a local artist here in the Seattle area.
It was a good one.
Yeah, and just wanted to give you a heads up that we were experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties, and unfortunately Jen's mic wasn't picking up during the interview. So...
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
Which is basically what I sounded like.
Charlie Brown's teacher. She was asking some great things, and I think if you listen closely, you'll be able to hear her.
I feel like if it was going to happen, it's okay that it happened in this one, because this was primarily a conversation between two artists, and you were picking his brain, and he was talking a lot.
Yeah, but I love your input, though.
Well, thank you. I just, I think people won't, there won't be a big hole in this podcast because I'm not heard as much. So that's why we thought it could be continued.
Yeah, regardless, give a close listen. You'll be able to hear Jen in the background.
I'm there.
Otherwise, we hope you enjoy this interview with Justin Hillgrove.
Listen away.
Story doesn't change.
So we're actually rolling right now. So,
okay.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Disturbin the Burbs. We've got my lovely wife sitting shotgun again, of course, Jennifer. And in the studio today, we've got one of my favorite talented artists, Justin Hillgrove. And he has his business called Imps and Monsters. And he's kindly agreed to come in and talk with us this afternoon.
Hey, everyone.
Evening.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal since I live 10
very,
minutes
very
away.
closely. Yeah, we're both Snohomies. I don't know. Are you in unincorporated Snohomish County?
I'm in unincorporated Snohomish. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Right on. And since we're both from Snohomish, one of the things that I do have to ask is, what's your favorite restaurant around in this area?
I have several. I love Fred's down on First Avenue. It's just like a little bar. Yeah, Fred's something. I just says Fred at the beginning. That's all I know. Yeah, I stopped reading after the first word. So yeah, no, but they've got good food. But I love Mexican, and El Paraíso is.
Oh right,
I love that place. Yep. But even Todo Mexico, right on.
We've been going to La Palmera for years and years and years.
I remember the one in Everett, because we used to live in Everett.
Yep.
We love that one. So.
They've closed that one down that was by Home Depot. And then there was a Jimmy Mac's there on Airport Way. And they've moved over into where the Jimmy Mac's is.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
We just passed that.
Yeah. And then, so we've been going to that other one. And they've known us for 18 years. And so every time, if the owners are in there, they'll take a look at me and they'll go, "Pelon," because of my bald head, Yeah. So I still feel very welcome there. So Fred's, what's your go-to order there if I was to go to Fred's?
I love burgers. Any kind of burger.
There's absolutely nothing.
Makes me really happy. Yeah.
Yeah. Should definitely check it out.
Yeah. They more than one favorite restaurant. Well, I mean, I really enjoy food in general. So it's like wherever I'm eating at the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get into a little bit of the history of where we kind of discovered you, and then go into your own personal history and yada, yada, yada from there. So where Jen and I first came across you was about 6 or 7 years ago, we used to take Lowell Larimer Road in between here and Everett to take Carter to swimming lessons at Forest Park. And we'd drive back and forth. And one day we were coming back from a swimming lesson and driving really slow through town because they've got that really slow speed limit there. Right. And you don't want to go blowing through there. And Lowell's just this tiny little blink and you miss it type of, they call it a neighborhood, but I would call it a little town. It's technically Everett. But there's like 1,300 people that live in that area.
It is. And you can only find it on accident,
right?
I think.
You found it because I was driving through there and I was looking at the buildings left and right, and I saw just by chance this little sign that said Imps and Monsters. And just with my... There was a creature. Oh, was there a creature on it? Some sort of creature? And I was just like, I've got to check this out. So we actually pulled over and I went up there, saw the sign, and I think it might have had your website on it or something like that.
Right.
And so I got home and I typed it in. I was like, oh my goodness, this is, my speed totally. So that's how we kind of discovered you way back 6-7 years ago. And
that studio?
It was. It was actually, when I first started, I met a few other artists, local artists, and we kind of gathered in this big building there right on Lowell, and co-rented some studios in it, and it was a great time. We kind of tried to revive the Everett Art Walk for a while, at least in the Lowell neighborhood, and we'd have really decent turnouts on Art Walk night and have big parties there, and like art parties, and even like live.
Yeah, I'm bummed I missed out on that.
Oh, it was so much fun. Yeah.
Oh man. So the beginning of your career, taking a little bit step back from that, you started out as a graphic designer. So that's something that we have in common. I've been a designer for about 27 years or so. So I'm interested in, your design career and how you transitioned from that into this. To me, it's always felt like a leap of faith to go do something that you're totally passionate about. So I'll go ahead and quit talking and let you.
Yeah, no, when I was in high school, or as a kid, I loved art, and I knew I wanted to do something art, and I didn't really know what to do. It's not like we could go on YouTube at the time, since the internet wasn't a thing.
Right.
But I figured graphic design was a reasonable way for me to have a job, because art really was the only thing I was
So to date you,
at.
About what year was that?
So that was in high school, probably 92, 93
okay.
is when I decided I'm going to be a graphic designer.
So you're a few years younger than me.
And just a few.
Yeah.
I think I turn 44 next year.
Okay.
So in high school, I kind of decided I was going to go to Seattle Central Community College for their art.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
their design and illustration
great program.
And it was great. I did it for a year, and then I was gone and came back and never ended up finishing that. But I put together a portfolio, just kind of made one up and started looking for jobs, and eventually faked my way into a position at a Trader Publishing. So I was working at a magazine.
Yeah.
Not a cool magazine. We were doing like apartments for rent, like pets. Some other things like that.
Yeah, I get it.
But I really enjoyed it because just something about page layout. It was very relaxing, but didn't use up all my creative energy. So I still had.
Didn't suck the life out of you.
Yeah. Well, so I was able to bring my paints with me, and I would paint in the morning, and sometimes at lunchtime, or I'd come home, and we after the kids went to bed, I'd do a little bit more painting too.
So you already had the regimen that you would work, and you would actually spend a lot of time painting and.
Yeah, well, I started doing that. I think the reason I started to was because there was one day where I had kind of this turnaround moment. Me and my buddy Ray, and we would go for these walks. Actually, there was a group of us, but on this particular day, it was me and Ray, and we were walking to the deli, and we looked through this window, and we saw all these toys inside, and we got really excited, and we just walked inside, and we're like, hey, we love all your toys. And it ended up to be Funko.
Oh boy.
And there was
Wacky Wobblers.
There was maybe 15 people working there at the time total.
Yep.
Which, as you know, right now they have like a city block and so many people. But we were chatting, and one of the guys in the art department said, "Hey, you look like an artist, whatever that means." Where they needed someone to do some freelance, and so I actually ended up doing some freelance for them, and did some turnarounds of some of their Looney Tunes bobbleheads and. Things like that. Worked a little bit on The Simpsons before they switched over to like 3D, completely to 3D. But one of the other guys there, his name's Mike Capp. He was an artist, though he worked in the sales department. And I was coming in one day, and he had these paintings, these really, really cool paintings where he'd take his kids' drawings. and fully fleshed them out in oil paints. And they were just amazing. One of them was called The Monster Who Eats Monsters. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I love this so much.
Right.
What are you doing this for? And he says, oh, for fun. And I was like, that makes so much sense.
Right.
And I got so excited, and my grandpa had just died, and he painted with oil paints, and I had inherited some oils and canvases from him. And so I went home and I painted, I drew something right onto the canvas and just started painting and having so much fun. And I'd bring him into Funko and hang out with Mike, and we'd talk art a lot. And
right. Would he critique what you were doing and give you pointers? Or?
Never a critique. He was just, I think he was just excited that hey, now there's two of us
here's
painting.
Somebody else doing the same thing.
He was actually one of my studio mates when we decided to open up Lowell, the studio there, or join that little group there. But we together started doing actual shows, like street fairs and stuff like that. In fact, the first show I did on my own, but we had already signed up to do Bumbershoot, which the Bumbershoot, I was really poor, and it cost about $1,000 to sign up to do that show. And so we decided to go in half season. Before that, I had a show, it was just Klahaya Days, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's
absolutely.
A local festival here in Snohomish. And while I was at Klahaya Days, I set up my booth, I hung up my paintings, and I sold a total of maybe 4 prints to Mike's wife. And so I was like, oh crap, what have I done? I've wasted, this money that we couldn't afford to.
Yeah.
And when it came time to do Bumbershoot, it was too late to back out. So we did it, and it's funny how big of a difference the right audience makes, because we did great. I called my wife that first day and was like, you'll never believe how well we did today. It was,
and did you have a bunch of prints already made up and everything like that?
Yeah. And I was using just like a little local printer just to do some normal paper prints, and was selling my paintings for pretty cheap. I was doing these little oil paintings for like $25 each.
Right.
And my big ones were like $100.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Which, if you've seen my prices now, it's a lot more than that.
I want one of your originals, but I've got to save my pennies now. So, was this the career that you expected to have when you were younger at all?
I didn't know, or wasn't aware that this could even be a career. It never occurred to me that you could just paint stuff. Because I guess my whole thing is I pretty much paint whatever I want. Though I typically just want to paint things within a particular genre, which mostly consists of robots and monsters and some pop culture things that influenced me as I grew up and even now.
Sure. And where do you think that the talent came from? Did it come from your parents? Where did you get? Were they supportive of what you were doing, or did you?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
My parents I never heard the old you can't support yourself as an artist. I don't know if it was. I mean, of course they loved me, and even the parents that tell their kids that they can't make money as an artist, I'm sure love them. That's probably why they're telling them that.
Right.
But maybe they just recognized I wasn't good at anything else. But there was a lot of support. I drew and painted constantly. I mostly painted Warhammer miniatures and Dungeons and Dragons miniatures.
Sure, I get it.
Hey, I painted and mostly drew D&D characters and made up my own little comics and stuff like that. But my grandpa he oil painted in his. I guess once he was retired. My dad was talented but never actually drew, if that makes sense. And my mom did some pretty cool murals and stuff in our room, I remember seeing too.
Yeah.
But I always think of talent more as the desire or enjoyment of something. So that you enjoy it so much you actually spend the amount of time necessary to become good at it, rather than the magical ability to do something good on the first try.
Right. I think. Yeah.
Like that quote, I will quote a quote I saw recently.
Okay.
You like art, so you're an artist. You like music, so you're a musician. What you love, that's what you become.
What it becomes, yeah. I think when I first discovered your work, one of my favorite pieces that you'd put together is "It's Not Easy," the Kermit the Frog in the jar piece. That was poignant to me and pretty funny, and it kind of appealed to my sense of humor. I'm pretty sure that I used that image without your permission as my Facebook cover photo that I had.
Fine.
And I actually went back there and dug through my Facebook profile and found that, and it was from 2013 where I discovered it. And I did give you credit though, if that counts.
That's all I ask. it totally counts.
Yeah.
That image is funny though because it's very polarizing. The images of course Kermit the Frog in a jar with holes punched in the top, and there's a leaf and a stick in it.
Right.
And it's just funny because basically there'd be two kinds of people that would look at it. There'd be the one who would look at it and go, "Oh man, you're a horrible person," and then you'd get the person who would laugh when they see it. And that was pretty much the only two responses I seemed to get.
It's very black and white. Right?
And of course, I was always like, "He's got a leaf and a stick. He's going to be fine."
Right. Well. Right, I'm definitely the second kind of person, but I became an immediate fan at that point, and just going through your website when I first discovered you, had all these different characters that you've created for your Imps and Monsters, but then you also have created a ton of tribute pieces, such as the Kermit. You've got lots of Star Wars. I've got a couple of your Star Wars pieces here. We've got some Harry Potter. The Miyazaki stuff, and we're obviously huge fans. We had a son that just gravitated toward those movies, and so we've got them all.
Right. I raised my kids on the Miyazaki films. So.
And I don't know, Jen, what's your favorite Miyazaki movie?
It's a toss-up between Totoro and Ponyo, actually.
Oh, yeah. I love Howl's Moving Castle.
That one's my favorite.
Is it?
Well.
Yeah. What's the little flame character?
Calcifer.
Yeah, Calcifer.
Yeah, he's my spirit animal.
Yeah, because he shows up in a lot of your pieces too, right?
He does show up in a lot of it. Very, very appealing. I just love him. Plus Billy Crystal. Yeah. Can't go wrong.
Right. So where does the inspiration come from to blend the world that you've already created in Imps and Monsters and the world of movies or fandom, or how did you kind of decide to blend those worlds?
That's probably influence from my friend Mike Cap, who I mentioned earlier. He did a lot of that. And there was one show we did for a gallery that's no longer there, a pop art gallery in downtown Seattle. We did this show called Icons and Influences, where we were combining our biggest artistic influences or life influences in these paintings. Mm-hmm. And that's where most of the original ones I had done, like I did a lot of Where the Wild Things Are, or Where the Wild Things Are mixed with Hayao Miyazaki, Jim Henson, the Army of Darkness, Charlie Brown.
Right. Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Those are all from that show, and I just really enjoyed doing that. And then also because I do Emerald City Comic Con every year, I just enjoy incorporating things that have influenced me in particular. Though I'm really careful just to pick things that I love, and I think it comes through in the pieces because I always put in the little details that show like fans that they'll see those and go, oh, he actually knows.
Right, the little dust bunnies from Totoro, or whatever they're called. I can't remember.
The soot sprite. Yeah, it depends on which version you're watching because they get called a couple different things. But I get asked a lot, like, hey, will you do this? Will you do this? Hey, will you watch, or will you do Game of Thrones, or will you do Minions? And I'm always like, I only do stuff I've actually watched or like.
And have an interest in.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, just from my own interest level, are there certain rules of being able to use pop culture in your artwork at all? Do you just is it better to ask for forgiveness than permission? Or
no, I get asked that a lot. It's one of the most common questions I get, especially from other artists.
That's what we do here at Disturbin the Burbs. We ask common questions.
No, it's a common question because a lot of people wonder about it.
Yeah.
And yes, there's specific ways that it's okay. Basically, one is if you actually have permission, and one way you can do that is I contribute to a lot of shows, group gallery shows, and some of those gallery shows are actually like sanctioned shows that have the permission of the whatever studio to do that. Also, there's parody. Parody is legal, though it's still a gray area. You can always get a cease and desist.
I guess that was my next question. Have you ever received a cease and desist?
No, I never have.
Yeah.
And then the third is there's something called fair use rules, which it's a whole list of rules that I think is probably pretty easy to look up. But basically, they're things like you can't do anything that would financially damage the party that you're portraying. It has to be obvious that it's not from them, but it's not originating from them. Like I said, there's a whole list.
So like the window decals of Calvin and Hobbes, or Calvin's peeing on the corner of the windshield or something, that's probably not a sanctioned thing.
No, I would say
it's not, and I assume it's parody. But
somebody's made a lot of money off of that parody.
I'm always really careful to only portray things in a way that I think that they would appreciate.
Yeah, the fans were like, "Oh, I have to have that."
Yeah.
I have that character.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of people like Ron English, for example, that'll do the fat McDonald's. He's always getting sued.
Right.
I mean, he has his own legal team, I think. But so I like to, because I only do things that I love anyway. I always portray them in a
flattering,
positive light. Yeah. Even the Charlie Brown Army of Darkness.
You have to look that one up.
It's great.
I've done 3 different Charlie Brown pieces. Yeah, because I did a Mad Max one and a more like a Walking Dead one as well. And I'd been invited to the Charles Schultz Museum. I did some painting demos, or they do like an artist in residence program where you're like talking to people when they come
that's
in.
Awesome.
And obviously they appreciate it.
And I got home and I did it afterwards. And then the director of the museum, I don't remember his name, saw that. And emailed me and said, "Hey, I really liked this piece you did. It's actually one of the better ones I've seen." And I sent him a T-shirt, and he was excited.
That's awesome. So. That's awesome. So at what point did you decide you wanted to diversify your product offerings? Like what came first? The first thing I think I took notice of was the plush. I saw the plushes coming out and a few other things. So how did you decide to go from doing the painting to kind of like growing your empire?
Well, I get bored really easily. It might just be an artist curse in general, but we like to do lots of different things.
Sure.
I love toys. I always have. And one of my first dreams, well, my first 2 dreams when I was a kid was to be an animator, which I later decided I didn't like drawing anything more than once. So that was out.
Right.
Though, art direction and stuff would still be kind of fun.
Did you still apply to Pixar?
No, I didn't. Never got around to it. Yeah. And then the other thing was a toy maker, which, as a kid, you're like, I'm going to be a toy maker. And that's what I used to do when I was really little, is I would make these packets of different like monster toys and all the accessories that came with them and stuff like that. So, it was just the paper plans. It was just pencil drawings. Actually, I still have a few of them of the drawings.
Yep.
So
that's awesome.
Which I think would actually be cool to make the toys from them sometime. But so just the idea of making toys always appealed to me. And I did a little bit of, we were talking before we started recording, a little bit about sofubi. So I've done some soft Japanese vinyl with my friend John at Rampage Toys. But the plush was a really fun experiment, I guess you could say. With, again, my friend Mike Kapp. He worked at a time and now is a partner at a company called The Coop, and they make all kinds of toys. They did, if you've seen the latest like Borderlands 3 toys, those like 7-inch figures and stuff, they make those.
Okay.
They did a lot of video game IPs and some Walking Dead, Cartoon Network, some pet toys, things like that.
Yeah.
But
so you luckily had hooked up with somebody that actually knew what they were doing and could give you a leg up on putting these together and do the ropes.
Plush was kind of their specialty at the time, and they've branched out since then. But it was neat being able to do turnarounds similar to what I did with Funko, where I would draw like the front, side, back views of what was going to be plush, and then they would kind of take it from there. I didn't have to do the extremes of checking each type of material, like, oh, what kind of material would be good for this part. They did that, and they would just show me the samples and be like, how's this look?
Yeah. Was that kind of a once and done thing? Or are you still working on plush, or
I just started a new project with them, though not of my own stuff. That was kind of a one and done thing, though, with the idea that we could do more. We just never did.
You don't have like a warehouse full of plush that you never
I don't. In fact,
that's a good thing, right?
I'm sold out of most of it.
Better that than left with 10,000.
Right.
Units of plush. Right.
Yeah, I just started working on some new stuff with them. That's we're going to be doing a lot of cryptid things. So that's like Sasquatch, Yeti, Loch Ness Monster, Jersey Devil, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
Is this a scoop?
Oh, it kind of is. No one knows about it.
Oh, right on. Hey, you heard it here first on Disturbin the Burbs.
So, and I obviously I can't like show anything off yet, but it'll. I'm excited to be working on that.
Yeah, because now you've got like pins and patches and apparel and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I like to make stuff.
Yeah. How do you decide what goes on those items?
It depends on the item. I just know what I like. I love patches. That's why I did patches. I sew them onto my pants and
very popular.
And backpacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Shirts are interesting because I always have a lot of people asking for shirts, but a lot of them want me just to grab a painting and slap it on a shirt, and I never have liked how that looks.
Sure.
In fact, it usually looks terrible. So it's just a matter of making a design that's more shirt centric.
Got it. Yeah. And then the Implands comic books. I know my son Carter is a big fan of that, and I think he's picked up every single one. What is there, six issues?
There are 6 issues. I actually just partnered with a friend of mine last year who, Deborah Collins. She's a writer, and I've started sending her like, here's what I want to happen in this issue. Can you write a script? And so we go back and forth a little bit, but she has a really good take on what I want for the characters and understands the voice of the characters. Like they've been around long enough at this point where she gets it. And in any situation, it's like, oh, this is what this character would do right here.
Right.
So I just got the script for issue 7, and I'm about to start.
Oh, that's awesome.
Working on that.
We need to pick up episode 6, issue 6.
Well, and
I remember when we first discovered them at it was the University Street Fair.
Right.
District.
Yeah.
And Carter was probably 10 or so. We picked up the first 2 that you had, and then we've just always picked up the next issue every time we see new at an event.
Right.
I try to do one each year in time for Emerald City Comic Con. So I'll be cutting it close this year. Usually I start a little earlier. It takes a lot longer than it looks.
And what was the name of the gal that you work with?
Deborah Collins.
And have you been working with her since the beginning, issue 1?
No, just since the last issue. So she helped with issue 6. And then, though she did issue 6, and I kind of did a rewrite on it, but there was some really like good gold in there. And issue 7, she pretty much just wrote, and it's perfect.
Awesome.
So I'm excited because it makes me feel like I'm not alone. There's a lot of work that goes into a
can
comic,
imagine.
And doing all the pencils and inks and writing and everything else myself was it's
crazy.
Yeah.
I just think of that movie with Michael Keaton. What was it called? Duplicity or
Multiplicity.
Multiplicity.
Yeah,
I'm just
it's a classic.
Seeing multiple Justin Hillgrove. Yeah, because you've got your artwork, you've got comic books, you've got all your toys and your patches and your apparel and everything, and then you're just going out to every event that you possibly can, and then on top of that, you're creating games as well, which is just crazy to me, and getting involved in that. how's your I mean, you work from home, so there's probably got to be a good work-life balance there, but it seems like, wow, you're just
it is tricky. I work a little bit too much. I take on projects I shouldn't. I have a hard time saying no,
sure.
Especially if it's something I get excited about. So that's definitely an issue.
Right. But then you've got to live by that no regrets, damned if you do, damned if you don't, strike while the iron is hot. I'm using a lot of platitudes here, but
they're all valid.
Yeah. Cause if you've got a momentum going a certain way, you've kind of got to ride that, cause this is your gig. It is. You got a family, and
it's interesting being self-employed in a way that I don't have a normal income. I have a farmer's income because I go to shows and I make all my money, and then I hope I can get through the winter until the shows start up in April. And having all these projects, you'd think, oh, he makes all this money from all these projects, but most of these are projects that are more labors of love,
sure,
where all the money that goes in pays for the project, and that's pretty much it. I'm just excited because it's like, oh, I just made patches. That's awesome. Will I earn the money back that I spent? I don't know, but I got these cool patches.
Right,
so.
Right.
Do you not do the holiday type, like gift shows? You don't only do towards the summer ones?
The summer ones are what I mostly do. I have done a couple of the holiday shows in the past.
I think of Urban Craft Uprising.
Urban Craft Uprising. Yeah, it's a tricky one because I do apply to that show. A lot of these shows are very competitive to get into. I did it for the first 7 years in a row, and then I just stopped getting in. So it's not for lack of hey, I'm sending in my application. They have a very limited space, and I don't know with them if it's they're very much into handmade, and I just like to make stuff. I don't know if it's a difference of hey, he's a little too commercial because he doesn't hand sew his plush,
right,
or whatever it is. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just they've got a certain feel for what they're going for. Yep,
jerks. Anyway, so I'm going to hop into Junk Spirit Games.
Yeah,
tell us all about that.
So Junk Spirit Games is a fun project that I went to high school with David Gerard, though he was a year or two ahead of me, and he owned the local Alliance Games shop in Snohomish for about 10 years after I graduated, where we'd play D&D and stuff. But he just kind of showed up at my house one day and it was like, hey, would you want to, I design games, you draw pictures, we should make games together.
Sure, yeah.
And I was excited. So I did mention that, hey, I've got a buddy who does graphic design. Let's get him on it too, because I don't want to do two jobs.
Right.
Which now it's funny because our latest game, which actually launches tomorrow.
Wow.
Though, depending on when you're listening to this, it was a little while ago. I did the graphic design and the art on that one, though it is a smaller game.
And what's that game called?
It's called Slip Strike.
Slip Strike. Is that currently on the Junk Spirit Games website?
There probably is. The teaser is up on there. It's like a 2-player assassins trying to kill each other kind of situation.
Well, these are all card-based games, so Carter would need to gain another skill, and that's the hand to card to table dexterity, which he doesn't have. He just has.
That's what I love, though, is the tactile. Like I've got cards in my hands, I've got dice in my hands. I love that that tactile aspect.
Absolutely,
of creating games.
Yeah.
When you're working on video games, it's like I made this, and you can see it on my screen.
Yeah. So how have the games been received?
Oh, I think they've been great. Each one's a little different. This is our 5th title. We've been very fortunate in that I already have kind of a little bit of a built-in following for when we first started. So that gave us a little bit of a jump start, I think, when we started, because usually you're starting from scratch with nobody looking at your project necessarily.
Right. How hard is it to get a game noticed in the industry?
I'd say very. With Kickstarter, it makes it easier, but it also makes it harder because, there's hundreds of games on Kickstarter at any given moment. And so you kind of get lost in this sea of the whole range. You've got this giant pool of mediocre games with some amazing ones mixed in there, and some that, I guess I'm not going to say anything bad.
Yeah, I can imagine that once you kind of gain a following and people know that this is a game that these guys have created, they're going to stick with you and probably follow you and see when the new games come out and shell out the money as soon as it's being released. And so, much like your artwork, I'm sure that they're following, those same folks are following you and will even buy that just to have your artwork in their collection via a game. Right.
Which, though, this one that we're just releasing, it's funny because it's the first time. It's a smaller game. It's like a $14 game. There's not as much art on it. And in fact, the art is much more graphic designy. So if you look at it, you wouldn't even be able to tell, hey, that's Justin Hillgrove. It's like, I drew a lot of inspiration from the old. Did you guys ever play that card game, Milborns?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. A little Italian racing card game. Yep. A lot more flat vector art.
Sure.
That was one of my favorite games when I was younger. And so it's kind of like almost a 1970s flat silhouette art with time traveling agents and stuff.
Yeah, we played Pit. Yeah, no, it's great. I think my folks even still have that game. I'd have to go dig it out. So I find that many designers believe that drawing or painting or anything you might create by hand is difficult and challenging to the point it becomes overwhelming and too much to handle to the point that they don't engage in those pursuits anymore. Why do you think that happens? It's happened for me, because I started out as a fine artist, but then I got into, graphic design, and web design, and that just kind of fell off after a while, because it was, me personally, I believe that it's a muscle. If you don't keep up with that muscle, you lose it. Is that kind of your philosophy, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely has to be something you do regularly. Like working out. It's not like you can work out once a week on Saturdays and get ripped.
That's my philosophy.
But at the same time, I think it has less. I think it mostly has to do with the lack of having something that you're excited about creating.
Right.
I think that's one of the nice things about, Inktober, Drawtober, all the different variations on that people do, Mab's Drawing Club. Because it gives people an excuse, not just artists, but regular people. Yeah.
I have several friends.
Right. Yeah. And it's just a reason to get excited about drawing. And I think having that, like for me as a teenager, it was role-playing games. If I didn't play D&D, I don't know that I would have kept drawing as much as I did.
Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give someone wanting to enter this industry?
Well, I guess don't get discouraged and give yourself time to do it. I was doing this for about 5 years before I quit my job. It's not one of those things where you just go, I'm a fine artist now. I quit my job and I'm leaving a soulless corporation, which isn't something I believe in anyway, because I think you can be perfectly fulfilled in a normal job and still save that creativity for free time and just do it on the side.
Right.
But I think... Yeah. What was the question?
I think it was, what advice would you give someone wanting to enter the industry?
Yeah. I think you just talk to other artists, network, but also take the time to get the skills.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to just jump right into something that, to be perfectly honest, they're not qualified for.
Right.
Educational route?
There's so many good YouTube videos out there. In fact, one of my favorite artists is Bobby Chu. He has something called Schoolism, schoolism.com, .ca maybe. I don't know. I think he's Canadian. I could be wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fact check.
Schoolism.org. Yeah. But anyway, they offer these great courses. It's like $35 a month, and you get access to all of the different courses from all these really well-known artists.
Yeah.
On everything from traditional painting to digital. And I think taking advantage of things like that are worth it.
Yeah.
If you're genuinely interested in it, and if not, like anything else, it's not a big deal to take 10 minutes a day and just doodle something. Mm-hmm. It's the kind of thing that adds up.
Right. Absolutely right. What do you wish you had known when you started out?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if anyone's ever asked me that before.
Score one for Jim.
So the problem really for me with answering a question like this is that I didn't know anything when I started out.
Right.
And there's things I learn every year, even now, where I'm like, I've been doing this for 15 years and I just figured this out. What is wrong with me? I took my dad to a show with me once and he's like, oh, you should just do this. And I'm like, are you serious? I've been doing this for 12 years and you
Yeah.
So there's so many little things like that.
Sure.
I would say I wished I'd known that I would eventually figure everything out and just not to stress about it.
That is great.
But also to take the time to enjoy and appreciate the fact that I'm an artist. This is my job. It's so easy for me to forget and be overwhelmed by the many projects, by me having to slog through the business part of being an artist, because I still have to do business. It's a job.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're getting to create art.
But yeah, I get to do the thing I loved. And when I was a kid, if I could see myself where I am now, I'd be thrilled.
Right.
There's been a lot of times where people have asked me like, hey, or they've told me, you could probably get a job at Disney. And I'm thinking, why the heck would I want a job at Disney?
Work for the man.
I work in my studio. I just paint whatever I want.
Right.
Why? Yeah. Well, you'd have to be crazy to trade that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So what are you curious about right now?
What am I curious about? I'm always curious about lots of different things. I am curious about how my book is going to end. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I do a lot of gardening, so I'm I've changed a lot in my garden this year. So I'm kind of curious as to how that is going to work out through the winter, including some trees that I've planted this year that I'm not positive how well they'll do here in the Pacific Northwest, but we'll see. But most of my curiosities have more to do with gardening and outside and books than anything political or
let's not go down that road.
People, or just people in general.
Right.
I like being by myself.
Yeah, I get that. Are you up for a lightning round?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Shall we do this?
Yeah.
Do you want to do it, Jen, or you want me to?
You can do it.
Okay. Here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Salted caramel.
Say a word in Spanish.
Oh man.
Adios.
Almohada?
Okay. Agua. What was that?
Almohada? It's pillow.
Okay. There you go. Do you believe in fate?
No.
Okay. Favorite number?
7.
Okay. Who has it easier, men or women?
Right now? It used to be men. As a middle-aged white man, currently in this Twitter-based society, I would say probably still men. Because if I say the other, My life will become harder.
Maybe the gap is closed a little bit.
I think of the whole Me Too, and it's been difficult on both sides over the last few years. And politics, let's not go down that road, but that was kind of a loaded question. So maybe not such a lightning round. Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
Probably only on accident, but I can't remember.
Oh, you're not a true Pacific Northwesterner if you haven't worn socks.
I'm not a sandals guy. I'm not a shorts guy either.
No. Name a primate besides monkeys and apes.
Orangutan? Does that count?
I don't get this question.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking marsupials,
They're
but
all monkeys.
okay, let's skip that one.
Well, orangutans are their own thing, though, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Why can't we tickle ourselves?
Oh, because we expect it. You got to not see it coming.
Okay. What does a person need to be happy?
They need something to be excited about, and they need to feel safe regardless of outside circumstances.
Okay. Is there such a thing as objective beauty?
Objective beauty.
Meaning the opposite of subjective.
Oh, I don't think I know words good enough to understand that question.
Okay, pass. What's the best age?
The best age, I think, is probably 40.
Okay. And I thought that until I turned 50.
Yeah.
I turned it begrudgingly.
I've had some new body issues lately. So I think 40 is,
the body starts betraying you.
Breaking down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's another one. If Voldemort offered you a hug, would you accept?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I'm a hugger, so yeah.
Note to self as he's leaving. Big hug. Oxytocin, right? A good 20-second hug releases that.
I think it'd do Voldemort some good too.
Yeah, it might, It'd be like the Grinch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And finally, is double dipping at a party ever acceptable?
It depends on what you're double dipping into, because I did watch that Mythbusters episode, and it wasn't a big deal with the salsa, but I think it's a no for the dairy based, like the ranches and the onion dip.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Justin, thanks for coming out and joining us and being subjected to our questions.
It was my pleasure.
The lightning round. A couple things to mention. This will go out in time for your upcoming open house.
Oh, okay, great.
So it should come out in a couple of Thursdays. So you have an annual open studio sale in Snohomish. You want to talk to us about that?
So I open my studio, though it's always open by appointment. My studio here in Clearview, just unincorporated Snohomish, is going to be open on the Black Friday weekend, basically. So that Friday, Saturday, and Monday, not Sunday, from 10 a.m. to 5.
Great. And where can they find... all that info is on my website, on the events page of my website, which is impsandmonsters.com. Excellent. And then your other one with your games is
junkspiritgames.com.
Yep. Excellent. So wrapping things up, is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
I don't think so.
Current or future projects that you want to talk about? Or
there's nothing I can think of. I did just finish working on a children's book, which will be coming out next year.
Awesome.
Through Sasquatch Publishing.
Okay. So when can we expect that?
It's fall of 2020.
Oh, wow. So we got to wait.
It's still a little ways off. I just signed off they just signed off, I think, on all the final artwork. So I didn't write it. It was written by Barbara Davis Piles, who did Grizzly Boy and some other books as well. But I'm excited to see that come out, because that's my first book with an actual publisher.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, maybe it will be the start of yet another chapter in your empire. So again, Justin, thanks for coming out. It was great talking with you. Very enjoyable.
Thank you, guys.
All right.